Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Venture Studios and Family Office. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. I'd like to welcome you each to GST Presents Top Global Startups. This is a podcast where I explore the ideas, founders, and technologies shaping the future of innovation. As I said, I'm Gary Fowler. We are a Silicon Valley venture studio and operational family office, working with startups across more than 73 countries and supported by a network of about 11,000 investors worldwide. Today's episode explores a fascinating intersection of human performance, artificial intelligence, and personal transformation. My guest today is Tremaine Grant, CEO of Paulson Intelligence Labs, a software engineer, former Division One athlete, and principal engineer working in clinical research. His work sits at the frontier where AI, wearable data, and real human innovation converge to create adaptive systems for health, fitness, and longevity. What makes what makes this so different is that he uses this to explain the system. If you're familiar with the global phenomenon solo leveling, you know the idea. Life is a leveling system where individuals gain access through structured challenges, feedback loop, and continuous progression. But what if that concept isn't just fiction? What if the science of becoming stronger physically, cognitively, and even socially can actually be modeled as a system powered by AI, data, and human biology? Well, today I'm going to explore how technology, behavioral science, and real world performance data could transform the way we understand human potential. And I'd like to welcome Tremaine to the show. Hi, Tremaine.
Hey, how's it going, Gary? Happy to be here.
So, you've had a fascinating background spanning Division One athletes, athletics, software engineering, and clinical research. How did those experiences shape the way you think about human performance?
Yeah, so I think just to start, I was I'm a track and field athlete. I started out in high school being a distance runner. When I got to high school, I wanted to change my event to the hurdles, and I was absolutely terrible. So my first year, I literally got last in every single race of the season. But the outcome was that I ended up getting a scholarship to Florida State University, one of the top programs in the country. I competed for Canada as well. So, one, it kind of showed me that hard work will always outperform talent. You have to work, you have to become a student of the craft of whatever you're in. And if you do that, you can get to an elite level. So it really made me kind of dive deeper into understanding why are some people able to get to that level? What is the mindset difference? And when you really start to dig into that, it's really fascinating about how the minds of like the most elite athletes, like a Serena Williams or a LeBron James, and how that gap appears between like great athletes and the greatest.
As someone who's lived both high performance athletics and deep technical engineering, what did you notice about how people actually get stronger versus how they actually think they get stronger?
Yeah, so this is a good time to kind of go into the solo leveling piece. If you're familiar with Solo Leveling is an anime. It's based in this world where there are these magic gates, and they subtly start opening in the world. It connects our reality to this reality where there are monsters in these dungeons, and at the same time, these abilities appear in humanity that gives them the abilities to go and fight those monsters. So those people that have those abilities are called hunters, and when you receive those abilities, you immediately get this rank. Um, it's the ranks are E through S, and the thing about this, the caveat about this world is that once you get a rank, you're fixed. You're stuck at that rank forever. So this anime follows the main character Jin Woo, who basically he's an E rank, and quite literally, he's labeled the worst hunter, the weakest hunter in the world. And he literally he's near death every time he goes into one of these gates to fight, even at the lowest level dungeons. Like an E rank dungeon is the easiest dungeon you can possibly go into. So he ends up trapped in a cave that is basically this elite level. At the time, they think it's a lower level dungeon, but it actually ends up being one of the most powerful dungeons. And he ends up sacrificing himself so the rest of his party can escape. And in that sacrifice, he's about to die, but right when he's about to die, his body adapts and he inherits this ability. It basically like genetically rewrites his genetic code to adapt this thing called the system. And the system is like this, think about it like a virtual, like a mixed reality headset that's built into his eyes and his body. So he can see this like heads up display of all his stats. So he can see, his HP, how much strength he has, how much stamina he has. But you can also see that um, through other people. So he can see other people's stats. He can see other monsters' stats, and then he can also see his strength. So he can add to his abilities like strength, endurance, dexterity. So what this world kind of shows is one, now he becomes this person that is able to, because he can see these stats, he's actually the only hunter that's able to level up. So that's why it's called solo leveling. He's a solo leveler. He's the only person that's able to level up through this system. And it takes this invisible world that we actually have inside of us. So we have a similar system. It's just invisible. It's invisible to the world. And in this world as well, in the solo leveling world, it's invisible to everybody. But now it becomes visible to Jinwoo, and I'm building a system that tries to make that same system that we have inside of us and make that visible so that we can also level up.
You know, when you look at human development from training to skill building, do you think life already behaves like a leveling system in some ways?
It does. It totally behaves like a leveling system. So there is a system called it's called the what is it called? The general adaptation system. So this is three-phase system that outlines something called alarm phase, the resistance phase, and the exhaustion phase. So the alarm phase is essentially it's massive disruption in homeostasis. So let's say you go to the gym and you lift a weight that is not in your comfort zone. That is, again, you're triggering that alarm system. So what happens is your body has to adjust in order to lift that. So for Jin Woo, when he goes into these dungeons and he's fighting these monsters, that's like the gym. For us, the gym is our dungeon. We go in there, we fight the monsters, and then we have to grow. But the growth doesn't actually happen during the battle. So anyone that's familiar with an RPG, so an RPG is a very popular genre of video game, which is what solo leveling is based off of. You understand that after the battle that's when you get your experience points. So that's what the resistance phase is. So recovery is when you're actually leveling up. So you aren't leveling up during the fight. After the fight, when you go and you rest, that's why sleep is so important. People understand that sleep is one of the most important tools that you have in order to grow. If you don't actually get good sleep after your workout, then you're losing a lot of your gains because your body needs to actually see that, okay, there are micro tears in your muscle that happened during that workout, and now overnight we're going to repair it, and that's when we're actually going to start to make some changes to that muscle so that now it's bigger and more and adapts to whatever stimulus that you have added to it. So the last phase is exhaustion, and that is when you overtrain. You don't want to overtrain. When you start to overtrain, you can't recover properly, and again, recovery is the most important part.
In your view, what role does data play in understanding performance that humans alone cannot easily see or feel?
Yeah, so data is our best weapon. If we're not tracking the data day to day, there's no way for you to actually level up, and that's the whole point of this whole solo leveling system. By making it visible, by being able to say, okay, look, we lifted this much volume today in the gym, and you have to understand that by lifting, you're going to be activating a certain skill. So let's go back to the idea of Jin Woo being able to see his different stats. He has strength, he has dexterity, he has intelligence. He's able to add stats to each one. think about that in the fitness modalities that you're choosing when you go into the gym. So when you're lifting weights, that's specifically going to strength. When you get on the treadmill, that's specifically going to endurance. So different fitness modalities are going to create different stimuli, and basically it's going to allow you to strengthen each skill. So again, so being able to actually see that's the problem, is that people don't actually see that. You don't know how much you're distributing to lifting versus endurance, and how much you're distributing endurance over lifting. So for Pulse, my fitness app. So I have a fitness app that's basically it's the whole idea is that it's not specific to one fitness modality. It's a holistic health app that allows you to target different categories. And the idea of that leveling system now is that, one, you have this leveling system that's going to rank you from E to S, but it's also going to give you like a special classification. If your distribution is mostly towards lifting, you're going to be classified as the iron fist. And that's going to basically mean you're doing much more strength training than you're doing, endurance training. But being able to see the data and say, hey, I can actually optimize towards endurance, I can optimize towards strength. You have to be able to visually see that in order to change it.
So Pulse Intelligence Labs is exploring how wearable data and AI can build adaptive fitness systems. How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a couple different products. So I mentioned Pulse. Pulse is our kind of main product. It's really focused on the consumer side of things. So it's addressing the fitness economy. I mean, the fitness creator economy. So a lot of the content is built by creators, by trainers. They can put these videos, these short form clips on the app, and create and use those. They're called moves. It's like at the atomic level of the app is a move. You upload these moves, and then from a move, you can create challenges. You can create a club. So the idea of creating these like social clubs where, that's, I think it's like the #9 ranked global trend right now. You can create a run club, you can create a lift club, you can create a stretch club. So you're creating this community on the platform, and that's Pulse. The other product we're working on that is it's pretty new, but we are in some talks for partnerships, is called Pulse Check. So
Mhm.
Pulse Check is it's specifically focused on mental performance for high performing athletes, and it's an AI component where an athlete's able to check in with the AI and talk to the AI, and the AI is able to report back to the coach. But the bread and butter and the beauty of it is these things we call sims. They're mental performance simulations. So think of like an F1 simulation, or like the simulations pilots use in order to create stressful environments that will then allow them to react during the real event. This is what we're doing with athletes. So as an athlete, what are you doing? Like, how are you reacting as a football player when you throw a pick? Are you thinking about that mistake for the next 3 plays, or are you able to snap back into gear? So we're building a product that's going to train the mind of the athlete in order to be mentally tough. And again, it's all about data tracking. So prior to that, we're going off of gut feeling. The coach is asking, hey, how are you feeling, champ? Are you feeling good today? How are you mentally? But we don't have systems right now that actually measure what cognitive performance looks like. So we're digging into that. We're measuring cognitive performance. And on top of that, we have a partnership with a company named on Edna, who are our clinical support. So if there's an issue that is beyond sports performance, we escalate that to Aunt Edna, who connects them to either clinicians on staff or third-party clinicians if that team doesn't support that.
Do you believe the future of fitness will shift from generic training programs to highly here's another thing. So we talk about the monitoring, right? It's about the data, but the other thing about the results, right? And
Yeah,
I know before the show we talked about stem cells and peptides and those kind of things. But can you imagine a world where we understand the data and all of a sudden it goes over to a doctor that specializes in stem cells or peptides that can profoundly increase the performance organically, right? And I'm not talking about in a steroid kind of way, but actually help you to be able to repair those tissues. Because when you're running like crazy, I'm sure as a Division 1 athlete, you're running track, you had some challenges once in a while. You got hurt, right?
absolutely.
But imagine having those kind of technologies out there that could actually, one, monitor, but then two, come back and say, this is what we need to do to fix it. And we don't have that, right? Because you go in and you got you got a
We
coach, you
don't.
got
Yeah.
a physical therapist. I mean,
Yep.
the future is, created a closed loop system, a 360-degree view of that athlete. And then the other thing is, using things like cerebral lysin and some other cognitive peptides. Imagine it makes you think clear.
Well,
You
look
could,
at this. I'm going to give you a scenario that's one step forward from that. So you talk about having all that biometric data and being able to send it to a doctor, and they're able to develop like a treatment that is specific to you and your genome. But if imagine now that information goes to an AI. So now it's tracking you in real time. So we're moving from this idea of like sending data to doctors or sending data to different outlets in order to get results or get an out or get like we're waiting for like it's like very reactionary. When something happens, we send it to a doctor send it back to us, and we have this long kind of pathway of going back and forth.
well,
What
but
does
if you
that
had
look like
it,
in the future when
but
it's real
Tremaine,
time?
if you had it in the middle, right, it's continuously
Hmm.
sensing, and it's in the
Yeah,
middle.
exactly.
Tremaine's. So imagine the world, right? So the world's going to evolve and I believe in a different kind of way. So we have one guardian angel, like your grandmother
Hmm.
loves you unconditionally. In fact, I built it. So I took 14 large language models and I created a team, and inside it, I created it to look like my grandmother, literally to act
Hmm.
unconditional love, that kind of thing. The stuff your grandmother. She'd cook you the pies and everything else, but she loved you and she'd keep you in line. But she loved you keeping in line. Well, imagine if we had it the same thing for it's a Division I athlete or somebody is studying for the bar, that you've got the same kind of tool to help you with everything. And so that AI, so the biggest problem is what? It's an infobesity problem. It's,
Yeah, that's what I was getting at was instead of going to a doctor, we all have individual personalized AIs that has full context of everything about us, has
yeah,
everything about our health, everything is happening in real time. So this AI is able to one detect things that could possibly go wrong before it even happens. It predicts it, right? And it's able to create treatments for you in real time so that you never even get, let's say, like it can predict that you're going to get a certain disease, but it knows that because of like your comp score, your cortisol levels, and where you're at, it can develop a treatment in real time and send you that treatment. And that could just look like a certain exercise plan. Like we don't know what that could look like, but the
yeah.
AI
Well,
develops that, and then you don't get the disease because your AI is developing that. So that's the point I'm going to get is I don't
as a
even know if
high,
there's going to be a doctor developing it anymore. It'll
well,
probably be just an AI developing.
there'll be one thing, there'll be the plan, but then you're going to have, in order to go down through and get the medical intervention, you're going to have somebody on the other side of it, a doctor or somebody, physical therapist, that can go down through and if there's some medical intervention. But this, I mean, we're talking about a very interesting 360-degree view of whatever it is. It's not just this, right? I have these conversations, 3 or 4 times per day with people, and
Yeah.
the world's changing. We're going to have one thing for everything. So it's going to be
Yeah.
okay, man, you're doing this, but you're taking kinesiology and you need some help studying for the exam. It knows how you think and it starts helping you. It knows
Right.
that you're going to take a plane trip and fly to San Francisco. It knows what hotel you like, what that you like the right hand side of the plane at the front in first class. It knows when you land that your buddy that went to school with you at Florida State is going to be there, and there's going to be a basketball game on, and you both like to watch basketball, so it sets up some time to go to a specific restaurant or bar. It's like knows you, like, and it knows the other person. But that's right. The that AI is going to be, because it's a data problem. I mean, think about this, Tremaine. You have 300,000 items in your personal cloud. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. Tremaine has more information as personal cloud than the entire web. The problem is Tremaine's world is growing on the same trajectory, but that'll mean doubling every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you're going to have 10 million items. The problem is,
Right.
I mean, and and for all of us on the show today, I mean, think about this. How many times the last 2 weeks somebody said, I sent you a message, did you get it? Where did you send it? I
Right.
sent it to your email, or I sent it to your Slack or WhatsApp or Telegram. Could be 20 some different places where you get information. Um, when did you send it? I sent it 3 days ago. Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? In fact, you don't even look anymore because you know that you're going to have hundreds of emails and it's hard to find things. So the people that use these tools to be able to help us to bring structure in a hyper intelligent kind of way to everything. So you're right about it. You're right. Training, physical therapy, being able to intervene for cancer. Because if you're doing that, it may come up with a suggestion. Hey, listen, we need to look at this. This could be a real issue. Could be some kind
Yeah.
of cancer. Let's fix it before it's a problem, right? You're,
Yeah.
and I love what you're
You talked
doing
to
there.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in and just ask you about, like, we talked about a little bit before we got on the call about, stem cells and what that looks like from the athlete perspective. Where, like, what is the in your opinion, what does the future look like for you when it comes to stem cell treatment and how athletes are going to be able to leverage that in the future?
Well, I can just talk about myself, right? Because
Yeah,
I am the experiment. So what I
right.
can say what happened to me is that it profoundly impacted my life. I feel 25 years younger. 25. I'm 70 years old, almost 70, right? And I feel and look.
Guys, does he look 70 years old?
Well,
I would
that's
never
it.
believe it.
Almost, and so, but the key is if that I am the experiment because so many people were talking about this stuff, Tremaine. Honestly, we talk so much and we don't do a damn thing, right? And my
Absolutely.
thing is go out and get this stuff done. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what I did. And what happened is I had stage 3 kidney disease and I also had sciatica really bad because I was really into martial arts and judo and I hurt myself. And I had it for 30 years and it hurt so bad I couldn't sleep at night. And I'm sure,
Wow.
being a Division One athlete, you've been in those situations where you toss and turn. And what did I do? I took ibuprofen. And what happened with ibuprofen? Well, I didn't realize it wrecks your kidneys, right, over time,
Hmm.
and it's not
Yeah.
good. And I did it because I couldn't sleep. So, do you not sleep for 3 to 4 nights in a while, or do you do this? And I got sick of sitting in a chair and trying to sleep. And so I did it. But what happened is it created this stage 3 kidney disease. Within a week
Mm.
after I started my treatments, it was completely gone.
Wow.
Completely. My
Wow.
sciatica completely gone. This is like a miracle from God Himself for me. And so for the athletes, I can imagine, you get rips and tears all the time. But imagine if you had, the tools in there from an umbilical cord, essentially, right? So a woman delivers 3 hours later, I'm getting the stem cells from her, and they do a lot of research on that person beforehand. You're getting the stem cells. This is medical waste. People throw umbilical cords away. I had
Right.
the stem cells. What I got 50 million of them each time. Well, when you get 50 million of those in, they look for areas where they're damaged and they repair it. Wherever it is in your brain, in your kidneys, in your lungs, your heart repairs it. Well, guess what? When we get older, our cells get bad and it's just going in and fixing up. It's giving a tune up. It's
Yeah.
fixing it, replacing it. And that for athletes, I can imagine because you guys, especially like professional football players, I haven't
Yep.
met one of those that's not been crippled in some way. I mean, you're getting hit like with a bulldozer all the time.
Yep. Honestly, I was super excited to talk about this because, you don't meet a lot of people that are actually participating in the research or participating in the trials, So I don't know if you've seen the documentary or you heard about the one on Hulu called "Don't Die," and it's basically about the idea of, like, in the next 5 to 6 years that we'll probably have a cure for all diseases. If you look at what Google's doing with AlphaFold, they're able to simulate every single human protein, in our in the planet. So if they're able to do that, they're able to simulate better drugs, better preventative measures for diseases. So, Don't Die is about the idea that if you can last 5 to 6 years, we are probably going to be in a place where we're almost like immortal. So you're like a first-hand testament to that.
I will be when I do my seventh full body stem cell replacement. I will be the number one person in the world at that point that's done it. I will be
Wow.
I am the experiment, and I did it for a reason because I said, there's a lot of people. Name of my company, by the way, is Get Shit Done Venture Studios.
Dope.
Because, like
Love
you,
that name.
I like to
Yeah.
compete. I like to win and all kinds of different things. But I also want
Yeah.
to help and make an impact on the planet. And if we go down through, you can do miraculous things if you believe in your dreams. And part of it is a visualization, exactly what you talked about earlier. As a Division I athlete, you had to visualize yourself going across that goal line. You had to
Yep.
visualize. You couldn't think about who's alongside you. You had to think about winning. You know what I mean? You think
Yep.
about winning and you cross that line faster. And
That's actually one of our simulations. Is it helps athletes understand how to do visualization. So I think a lot of times, again, we talk about it, but we don't really understand how to effectively execute the exercise, and you have to do it like daily. It has to be something that you continue to practice.
no, I agree. And as a you'll see a TED talk I did 14 years ago about that. I call it Unleashing Human Potential. So you can see the TED talk. And putting money where your mouth is. I believed that what I could do was right. And people told me not to do it. I started one of the first generative AI companies in the world in 2016, 3 years before OpenAI. People said it's
Wow.
never going to happen. This AI stuff is 25 years out in time. I said, you're wrong. It's going to happen. And look where we are today. Everything changes. Now you're
Yeah.
right with the stem cells, with these technologies. It's not about 5 or 6 years for me. It's about today. I'm there now. And so
Yeah.
why, how much is it worth? When somebody said to me, what's it like? I said, well, when you're dead, it doesn't matter, does it? My
There it
buddy,
is.
this is a real conversation. So one of my buddies told me, I'm getting a 718 Porsche. I've been looking at it for a long time. And I said, he said, you got the stem cells. He said, well, I'm going to put money in the car. I said, dude, you're like kind of sickly. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you put money in yourself? Who cares about a car? I freaking ride a bike if I'm
Right.
alive. Because guess what? You can earn more money and be more successful and do
Yep.
amazing things. And, we forget sometimes, my grandmother immigrated from Africa, and she was 10 years old with her grandmother. She couldn't speak English, came over to this country with a dream, and the way they were successful is because they had dreams. Same with my grandfather. He immigrated also. And they came into this country with a dream. We can imagine coming from a foreign country, Africa, right? And not being able to speak the language, looking a bit different, a different hue to your skin and all that. And they had to come to a little town in Pennsylvania and they were successful because what? They believe they can unleash the potential. And the one thing they taught me growing up is that you can do anything if you believe. And I'm sure you've
Yep.
gone down through the same thing because you wouldn't be a Division I athlete if you did. And the other thing, Tremaine, there can be people stronger than you, right? That are better athletes, but because their mind's not set in the right place, they lose.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's almost Serena's coach, Patrick, I forgot his last name, but he's actually talked about this. He's talked about talent actually being a hindrance for some athletes, some young athletes, because they're so talented from a young age. People are constantly telling them like, "Oh, you're so talented, you're so talented, you're so talented," and they lean too hard on the talent, and they neglect the work. So he also talks about the idea of like these children are grown, or athletes are grown from a very young age. The athletes they are today are influenced by those like first 6 to 7 years of their life. How are their parents pouring into them? Are they instilling confidence? Confidence is just such an important quality to have at a young age, because to be successful in anything, as a successful athlete, as a successful entrepreneur, you have to have that mindset of like almost like delusion. Like like there's no plan B though. There's only plan A, and plan A is the win.
And you win. And the thing is,
Yeah.
I've done it myself in all kinds of different ways. I wanted to go back through and I wanted to go back to university. I got divorced. I wanted to go back to university because I wanted to change everything. And I actually went to university in Russia, 5 years.
Mhm.
Now, Russia, can you imagine learning that language? You think Greeks are, try Russian. And
Yeah.
to go down through just to prove that you could do it. And every time you do it, you can pop through it. And once it's like, I say it's like sharpening a knife, isn't it, Tremaine? Because once you have that mindset and you believe in your dreams, you can do anything. That transfers to other areas. I built a house. I built 29 houses. My biggest
Wow.
house, 21 years old, right? I'm not an architect, but I built houses with 87,000 bricks, 87.
Wow.
And I did it, a beautiful house. But it's, if you believe it, it comes true. I also believe, there was a book called A Man Thinketh, which became The Secret, right? And that was, if you can manifest it and believe yourself in that position, it happens. Kind of like the world, I'm not talking about, this theories. I'm talking about reality. If you
Yeah,
believe yourself to be in that position, you come. If you want to be an Olympic athlete, you can do it. That part, because a lot of athletes have the same amount of physical capabilities. They just don't have the mental. The mental can push you to the finish line.
exactly. And take you wherever you want to go.
And you've seen
One of
people
the
give
one
up,
of
right, Tremaine. You've
They
seen
do,
people.
they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. And that's another quality is like you can't have that, you can't have quit in you. You have to be a person that you're gonna keep fighting. We have this analogy we use on the pulse check side of the product side. We talk about, right now, like the cultural term for an athlete that has that thing, that goat mentality is like they say like you got that dog in you. You know what I mean? So a lot of people say you're not, you either got it or you don't. But we believe at Pulse that everyone is born with that dog in them. It's just some are born with it already trained and some are untrained. So the athletes that are intentionally training the dog, those are the ones that you're going to see are going to be the most successful. And the ones that have it and it comes already trained, it's hard to catch them because they already come with a trained dog. So now the things they're teaching that dog is like they can move on to the next level while we're trying to get to their level. So I think that's the difference. And I don't know if you'll ever like, that's why they say these talents are generational talents, because there's a component that you're born with or that you really come built at a young age. But I think everyone has the capability to train that mental fortitude. And that's the key, is actually
You know,
training it.
I met with this guy. His name is Scott McNeely. He's the founder of Sun Microsystem. Very successful. That was one of the first workstation companies, and it was incredibly number one in the 1990s, early 2000s. Got bought by Oracle. But I had lunch with him, and I said, he's like, he was a guy who was going head to head with Steve Jobs, that kind of level.
Yeah.
And I said to him, Scott, I said, I remember when you told me, um, go to areas that you fear the most, you're going to learn the most. And I never forgot that. And so when I told you about going to Russia, it was kind of spooky, right? I went there pre 2015 before the war started and all that. But even then, when you go into a foreign country, not looking the same, you know, uh, but what I found is that another thing, Tremaine, that really helps is that look for the similarities in people and not the differences.
Mm,
You know
that's
what
a
I
bar
mean?
right
Look
there.
for the similarities, not the
Yeah.
differences. If you do
Yep.
that, you know, it's not how different are you, it's how much are we the same. And let's use that as a foundation of building a house. It's the same thing with life, right? And the networking connections of people that support you and love you are really important. And the more people that believe that you have the empathy, compassion, know you have the empathy and compassion for them, the more they love you. And guess what? All of a sudden, your whole life changes.
That's something we're building in Pulse, is this concept of creator clubs, or these fitness clubs. And I mentioned earlier, like run clubs and just fitness clubs in general, fitness recreation, group recreation is like the number 9 global trend right now. But that's not, there's no mistake in that. Like the reason why that is happening is because, one, I think COVID was a catalyst for that. We were cooped up for so long, and as humans, I think we started to realize like we need other people, we need love, we need connection. That's like what makes us human. And so when COVID ended, people were like rushing to get that connection back. So yeah, the big reason why we are creating these clubs is because I talked about the system. The system is like the thing that a lot of people think, like the fitness industry has kind of like labeled motivation as the reason why people don't succeed. But my thesis is around it's not the motivation, it's the system. Motivation is fuel, but fuel is useless if you don't have the vehicle. And part of that system, again, is building in things like community that is going to create the motivation for you. Community is what really will allow you to have accountability, to have people that you love, and people that you meet. And like run clubs are exciting because not just because you're going to do fitness, but because you're excited about who you could possibly meet at that club that day,
Yeah, well,
or who you might
that
connect with.
there was a book by Viktor Frankl many years ago called The Man's Search for Meaning, and it's really important to get down through and find people that have shared goals on one side, but the other side is, you got to look yourself in the mirror, and you got to say
Yeah.
to yourself, because you can't blame other people for your successes or failures. You got to look at yourself right in the eyes. And until you can
Right.
do that, you ain't going to be successful, because you come in this world alone and you go out this world alone. And
Absolutely.
you got to go down through, and you got to own that responsibility and not blame other people. So if you lost a race, it's because you lost a race. It doesn't matter. You got
Exactly.
to win. And sometimes it's almost like you're talking to yourself, right? And you've seen some of those athletes that are really physically right, but not mentally right. And they can't convince themselves to win. They don't want to win.
Yeah.
Because you're right, their parents didn't support them, their grandparents didn't support them, their friends didn't support them to be winners. It's a mentality, isn't it? And I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen Olympic athletes, right? When you were in Canada, you were probably at the World Games, or were you Olympian in the Canada, or what were you doing?
So I ran World Juniors. So as a sophomore in college, I qualified to do World Juniors, which is like before you go to like the Olympics or the World Championships, they have like age specific. But I got injured my junior year in college, redshirted senior year because mentally I didn't have the support. I I never got back to my former self. I was constantly babying and babying this injury that I wasn't sure was healed, even though doctors, all the physicians on staff were telling me like you're 100% healed, but my mind just couldn't get over it.
Because is
And
that you didn't want to win? Is it because you didn't want to win, or what happened to you?
it wasn't that I didn't want to win because I always had that mentality, but I think the difference is our mind understands how to handle the things that we know how to handle. So for me, my personal experience is I've always had that mindset of like resilience. So like I told you, I got last every single race my freshman year and then ended up with a scholarship. The thing that I'm used to is fighting back. I always had this chip on my shoulder, even in my family. I think I was always kind of like, I'm the middle child, so I had the middle child syndrome. I always was like proving myself, so I got to that point where I was proving myself and I got to where I wanted to get to. But with the injury that happened, this was new. This was like a new, a new stressor, a new stimulus. Like this was not something that my mind was familiar with. So in that case, that's always going to happen. There's going to be your mind is able to adapt to the things that it's used to, but then when something shocking happens, you have to now train your mind to recognize that. And at that point, I think now we have the language for it and we understand mental training is important. But back then, at the time, I mean, I was at a top program and we had a sports psychologist that I would see every like 3 weeks. We would sit and talk, but we weren't doing like mental training. And I think now what I understand is like I needed training. I needed to break through that mental block that was stopping me or that was tricking my mind into thinking that I still had this injury, even though it was healed because I felt it was still there. Like my mind was
Because
fooling
you were
me.
afraid, you didn't want it to come back. I understand
Yeah.
that. I had it one time. I was on a tennis team, and I had hurt my ankle really bad. And I was like, even though it was all healed, I was really spooked because I didn't want to hurt the ankle. And I was like, I thought about it too much, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that like, that law of like detachment. Like you can't be too attached to some of these things. You gotta like
You got to let them
think
go.
about it, address it, and let it go. Yeah.
I was with this guy. It's a right-hand man, Rupert Murdoch. His name was Andrew Struginski. I'll never forget this. And so we were talking about, he said, I've interviewed 3,000 entrepreneurs, and I've come up with what are the key parts of their personalities that they have across the board, and the reason that they're successful, right? And he said, and I said, tell me one thing. What's the top thing? He said, amnesia. And I said, what do you
Mm.
mean? He said, they never talk about the past. They let the past go, let it go, and
Wow.
move forward. Because if you're moving forward, and he said, and we talked about different people that he knows. One guy got divorced, and he never talked about that woman again. He just, didn't talk about it, talk about it with his friends, etc. When they got separated, it was over. It just was
Yeah.
over. And he moved forward, and that's what life's about. The problem is we have this emotional hooks inside of us, and it's almost like we don't want to let it go. And the problem is, if you don't, that's how your life, the older you get, by the way, Tremaine, the more of these hooks you get in you, and the more people
Yeah.
like start to be afraid of things. You can't be like that. I
Yeah.
mean, don't be afraid. Go out. Life is like a journey. It's like being Indiana Jones. Go out and look around and see what's there. I just came back from Africa. I was in Nigeria. A week after that, I was in Thailand and Korea. Go out, look around the world, see
Yeah,
what's out there. Because if you do that, you bring joy into your life and happiness, and tools like what you have. These are part of the journey, and being able to help support people to understand themselves, to be the best they're unleash their potential, is critically important for everything.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm a Sagittarius, so I am like the adventure. I love to travel. I've gone to 26 countries. And yeah, I always tell people like one of the best things I suggest in life is to do solo travel. Go out by yourself. You're so much more likely to connect with new people because when you're with people are more intimidated to speak to you, and you're less likely to go out and speak to other people. You're just going to stay within your group. So solo travel is like you really find out more about yourself, and you learn such amazing things about who you are, and you know just get to experience a very different
You
experience
look
than
like
than
you're
you're
ready to
used
go on a
to.
trip right now.
Oh, my bag's packed, actually.
You got that look in your eyes. You're
My bag
like
is packed already.
a dog hearing a piece of meat. You look like you're
I
ready to
was
go.
ready to go on a trip yesterday.
Wow. Listen,
Yeah.
we're coming to the top of the show. Closing thoughts, Tremaine, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So closing thoughts. I mean, I think for me, it's just going back to that idea of the system. It's not about motivation. It's about creating a system that is going to make things easiest for you. I always tell my clients, the easiest way to get to your goal is to create an environment and a system that is going to make getting there as easy as possible. Your meal plan should not be complicated. It needs to be as simple as possible. Maybe like three different types of meals. You cook that, that's it. You make sure you're meal prepping if you're not someone that likes to cook every day. I bought a walking pad and put it in my bedroom. So when I get out of bed in the morning, I just roll over, jump on the walking pad and do my fasted cardio. So like you have to create systems and build habits around you that make your life easier. And I think that's the message I want to leave with people. Now, if you want to reach me, I am on Instagram as the Trifecta, the Trefecta. And then I'm on our app. You can download Pulse at fitwithpulse.ai. That's where you can download the app. And also, if you are a fitness creator, a trainer, anyone that just wants to create community, we would love to have you on Pulse. Come and create your own fitness club. You can create a run club digitally. So now you have you're able to do in real life experiences, but also have this digital experience where now you're not limited to one location. And then also for sports teams, if you guys are interested in piloting Pulse Check, so again, mental performance training for elite level athletes, reach out to me at trey@fitwithpulse.ai.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. It's
Thanks for
appreciated.
having me.
And thanks to
Thanks for
all of
having me.
We're at over 1,600 podcasts, and it's because of all of you in 73 countries around the world and millions of views. Thank you for taking time, and thanks for the feedback that you all give us and the show. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition of GSD Presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Thanks, Tremaine, and thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Gary.